Welcome to What's Going On, the weekly podcast and videocast of First United Methodist Church in Yankton, South Dakota. Hi, and welcome to this week's episode of What's Going On. I'm Pastor Katie here at First United Methodist Church, and I'm glad you could join me for this episode. Today, you just get me. I've been trying really hard since coming back for season 6 of What's Going On to be intentional about having more people on the podcast. And moving forward into the fall, you're going to see that as well. But every once in a while, you're just going to get me. And I hope that's okay, that you are willing to still spend some time with me on this podcast. This week, and this coming week as well, we are launching a lot of our fall activities. 605 launched on the 10th. We have our pastor book club is coming, our adult studies and things like that. So today I want to talk about some of the things that I am doing, and I would love for you to join me in that. And please know, and maybe I'll talk a little bit about, there's other opportunities always happening in the life of the church, other groups that are meeting, and I would love for you to be a part of those if that's what works for you. I know what I'm doing, and so it's easier for me to talk about those things in more in depth. But please know that we do have a women's Bible study that meets on Sunday mornings. They would be so happy to have you join them if you are looking for a place like that. We have a men's breakfast group that meets at Frying Pan on Thursday mornings. We have Bibles and Brews, which you've heard Carla Hummel talk about, that meets every other Tuesday down at the bar, called At the Bar. Those are all great opportunities for fellowship, connection, study, discussion. And I would love for you to explore those opportunities if that works better for you. But I do, as the pastor, try to have a few opportunities. And I also try to have it sort of at different levels of commitment or time investment, because I realize that everyone's schedules look a little bit different. Everyone is in a little bit different place in their spiritual journey, in their discipleship path. And so different things are going to work at different times. And so I recognize that, and I try to make that a part of my planning. Now, I will say my own bias is toward books because I love books and I love reading books. And so I do try to incorporate video studies, and with that, I have a really exciting announcement, but I'm going to hold off on that for just a second. But I do know I do skew toward books often, but that is because it's my own comfort zone, and it is what I really love as well. So with that, I want to start with the Pastor Book Club. I have brought this back. I know that this is kind of a small group of people that really have latched onto this, and I hope that the idea of maybe reading one book in the course of a month might be something that you would be willing to try once in a while. And the first book that we're going to be doing, and we'll meet September 29th at 7 o'clock here at the church, is, I think, a really accessible, engaging book. This is one that I have actually read before, but I loved it so much that I want to share it, and I want others to read it and to be able to, again, have discussions around it. And it's by an author called Shauna Niequist, and the book is called I Guess I Just Haven't Learned That Yet. Shauna Niequist is an author that I was introduced to she wrote another book that is called Present Over Perfect. And this book was just an incredible book that spoke to me as a busy mom, full-time, pastor, pulled in all of these different directions, and that voice in our head that says, if I can't do this perfectly, like, why am I even bothering? And the argument of that book is really to try to be present rather than worrying about if everything is perfect. Like, I don't want anyone to come to my house. My house is a pit. Instead of worrying about that, worrying more about how can I be present in the moment instead of always, no matter where I am, thinking about the 30 other things that are on my docket for the day or for the week or whatever. And so it was a really helpful correction and helpful in identifying and engaging like right priorities. What kind of life do I want to have? Do I want to be present when someone is with me, or do I want to worry about trying to be perfect, which is a goal that nobody can really attain? So that was the first book I'd read of Shauna Niequist. And then I got a devotional book that she had written, and it was called Savor. And so it was a daily devotional book, but it also had within it recipes, which I just love. I would show you that devotional book, except for I lent it to somebody, and I currently don't know where it is anymore. Um, Shauna Niequist, her father is a very well-known pastor in the Chicago area. This book, I guess I haven't learned that yet, is actually a little bit more of a memoir type book for her, and it's talking about her life. So I don't want to give too much away, but basically a scandal had happened involving her father, which basically made her whole world fall apart around when she was 40 years old, which is the age that I am. And really, this is the story of her having to learn how to rebuild a life when everything that you had built your life on before kind of fell apart, fell away, broke down. And so it is the story of her family moving from Chicago to New York. It's the story of, again, just finding herself in the midst of all of this. And I just found it to be incredibly compelling, incredibly honest. I really, I think I'm drawn to stories like that of people who, you grow up in one way and you kind of build things up. And then when something happens, that all of that crumbles and you think, my life is over. What am I going to do? Like everything I knew, everything I thought I knew, is no longer. And I find it incredibly hopeful to read these stories of people who, in the wake of all of that, there is new life and hope and growth and all of that. And so there are multiple books like that that I have read over the years, and this is one of them. And I think one that's, again, very well written, very easy to read, very quick to read if you kind of get sucked into the narrative of it. But so I hope that you would consider reading it and joining me for the book club. Again, we're going to be doing them the last Monday nights of the month, unless there's something significant that doesn't work. But 7 o'clock, it's just really informal, really casual. It's not like you have to come with a book report or anything. Even if you didn't finish the book, still come. And again, let's just talk about what touched us, what didn't, that kind of thing. So it's meant to be you read one book over the course of a month, and then there's one meeting. So really low commitment. And it's not something like if I do it once that I have to do it every month. That's not necessarily true. Um, if the book speaks to you, and I'll be advertising the books on the screen, in the bulletin, in the newsletter, so you can kind of see what's coming up. Typically, I have you find the books wherever you want. If you want to check them out in the library, if you want to buy them, if I tend to oscillate between Kindle and Audible. And so I leave it up to you. If you are someone who's like, I would like to, I don't really know how to do any of that, let me know. I'd be happy to get that book ordered for you if that would be easier for you. The next kind of level is what I would say our Tuesday lunch study is. And I recognize that for some, that is not a time where they're able to be in a study group. And I understand that. If you are someone who has a lunch hour and you want to bring your lunch to the study, that is great. And you are welcome to, and encouraged to do so. But we've kind of built up a nice group there, Tuesdays at noon. And we're going to start off the year with a study on the book of First Corinthians. This tends to be my group where we do video studies, and this one, you do not need to buy the book or to read the book. I mean, you could probably read First Corinthians from the Bible, but we are basing this study on a book called First Corinthians, Searching the Depths of God by Jamie Clark Souls. It is not a requirement to read the book. It's not a requirement to purchase the book. You can come to the class without any of that and still be getting a lot out of it. I'm really going to design it so that there is no outside homework for the Tuesday class. And that's kind of how I try to keep that one. It is very much you show up and everything you need will be contained within the class. And there's options to do extra, but it's not a requirement. Um, One thing that I'm really excited about that I just learned is that moving forward, we, as the Dakotas Conference of the United Methodist Church, are part of this brand new partnership co-piloting thing with Cokesbury, which is our United Methodist Publishing House. Cokesbury has a wing now called Amplify Media, which is their video series storehouse sort of thing. We used to, for a year or so, we had Right Now Media. This is basically Right Now Media, but for Methodists. And so the new co-piloting program is that the Dakotas Conference and Cokesbury are partnering together and offering Amplify Media free to the churches and people of the Dakotas Conference. Free. And not only that, but you will have access not only to the studies that are on there, but also to media that is put out by the Dakotas Conference, meaning you can actually see me on there, which when I found that out, I was like, oh, gave me a little feeling in the pit of my stomach. But last year, I was invited to do a video for the Lenten series that they did on third day, Tom Berlin's third day. I did the one on Mary Magdalene. And so they recorded me doing part of the sermon that I had written. And so that video is on there. And so I'm like, going to be a big media star now, apparently. No, not really. But anyway, so when that launches, it hasn't launched quite yet. It's going to launch later this fall. But once that launches, my Tuesday lunch study will be using the video series from Amplify Media. Again, the idea for Tuesday lunch study is that that is the study that you can just show up to week to week. There's no outside homework if that is not something that you're able to do, and you can just come and be part of the conversation because we'll be doing a lot of that work in that hour. And so we're starting with First Corinthians. I'm really excited. We haven't done like a specific Bible book for a little bit. That group was every summer reading the Bible as we were doing the Bible challenge, but this is going to be a little bit different. But First Corinthians is such a rich book, and there's so much in it, and so much to talk about, and so much that's applicable for who we are. So I'm really excited about that. And that's Tuesdays at noon up in the upstairs. I want to call it the confirmation room, but I really shouldn't because that's only one of the groups that meets in there. But it's one of the newly renovated, in the process of still being renovated, actually, rooms in our church. And so it's going to be a really lovely space as well. And I'm excited about that. And then starting this Sunday, we are going to be looking at the tiers of things. And this is by Richard Rohr. And I've got just this is what the cover looks like. So I want to share a little bit about how I came to encounter this book and why I ended up choosing it. So my Sunday morning to me is my kind of high level discipleship class. And I don't mean to say that to scare you away. It's just what I would say the most um, involved. There's homework involved for the Sunday morning class. Last year, we went through the Disciples Fast Track, which there was quite a bit of homework for, but it was an incredible experience, and I'm so glad. And so it was like, what do I do to follow that up? Because we plowed through the Bible in that last year, and so I wanted something that would be a little bit more complex, a little bit more nuanced, a little bit more challenging, so that the discussions could be, real, and for there to be work to do and to reflect on and to read. And so again, this is like anybody is welcome to this. I would say it's probably not appropriate for kids. I think there are some youth that could probably handle it, but I also know that a lot of our youth are overwhelmed with their schedules as it is, and they've got such great options with youth group as well. any adult could do this, and any adult I think would benefit from this class, but there is an expectation of engagement that's a little bit higher than the others. And so I want to make that clear. But I've shared before that this summer, part of my renewal leave is that I did some work with the Benedictine monastery here in town. In particular, I did spiritual direction with their Center for Peace. And the sister that I did spiritual direction with was sharing with me one of the things that they are offering starting this year, and they're going to be running it. And it was this book. And there was just, I was just intrigued. And the reason I was intrigued was because the time that I spent in spiritual direction, I found such a kindred spirit uh, in my spiritual director. There was so much that even though we came from different traditions, there was so much that we shared. There was such a heart that we shared. There was so much that it was like, yes, yes, I agree, yes, yes. And so I was curious, that if this was the direction that they were headed for the fall, I was like, what is this? And so I got the book on Audible. Like I said, I also like to listen to books, and I started listening to it. And there was just something so powerful and convicting and challenging about what I was listening to. I haven't finished it because I decided that I wanted to do this because there was just so much in it, and so much that I felt like, wow, this could really produce some really great conversations, could really produce some movement within our church and some direction, especially engagement in the world right now. And the reality is that things are not easy, things are tough. And how does scripture inform that for us? And in particular, so this is by Richard Rohr. He's a Catholic, but again, uh, my experience over the summer has been there's a lot of overlap. For as much as there are things that we don't agree on, or ways of worshiping that we do not share, there is, I think, so much more that we do. And so I'm excited to take a moment and to engage with him and with that tradition. Again, not anticipating that everything is going to be in alignment, but also recognizing that there is a wealth of experience, a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of perspective that I think we can learn from. I don't know if you know this about me, but I do try to be as ecumenical as I can. I don't for 1 second believe that United Methodism is the one right and true church and everyone else is just, fallen in a way. I don't believe that for a minute. I'm United Methodist because this is the tradition that speaks most to my heart and most to who I am as a person, and it allows me to engage with God most fully. Like it just connects with me. Um, that's not to say that I couldn't find connection in other traditions. This is the one that speaks to me. So I like to find ways of partnership and ways of learning from others because I think that's a good, humble way to be. And so we're going to be working through the tiers of things. Now, initially, I had hoped that we would have the books prior to Sunday so that you could read the introduction and the first chapter. The chapters are actually fairly short, but they are a little bit more dense. This is not going to be super theological. It's not going to be using the big words, but the topics and the ideas that he is introducing, especially around the prophets, it just takes a little bit because he's packing a lot in these short chapters. Now, we did not get the books, I think, in time to be able to read anything prior to our first meeting. And so this coming Sunday will be more of a general introduction and talking about, what the class is going to be, kind of what the expectations are, maybe doing a little bit of a general introduction to the book, and then we'll start. So we will actually go 1 week longer than what I had originally planned, but that's okay. We can shift, we can adjust, and that's not a big deal. But that is where we're headed. And I know I had some people when they heard the title of it thought, oh, that's going to be heavy. I think sometimes we have an aversion to things that are hard or difficult or hard to face. We just kind of want everything to be light and fluffy and make you feel good and to just put a nice veneer on things. But I think as Christians, we have a duty as well to wrestle. We have a duty as well to face things that are challenging and to talk about them and to do it together. And so it is my hope that one, it's going to be a great time of learning and engaging with a part of the Bible that we don't often engage with. And two, my hope is that these conversations continue to spread and that it gives us more tools and more opportunity for the Holy Spirit to speak to us and to work in our lives and in our hearts and minds as we continue to engage in a world that is rapidly changing, where things that were always kind of taken for granted maybe aren't anymore. And there's a lot of, I think of a lot of different areas where things are just shifting and people feel really at some level of unease about it. And if we truly believe that God is working through scripture and that God is speaking to us, then let's give God that opportunity, right? And so that is my hope for the Sunday morning class. And so that's where we're headed. Like I said, those things are kicking off. Youth group and confirmation and 605, all those things are up and running. The other big thing I want to say is we still need more signups for donations and volunteers. The banquet is this coming week, Thursday, September 18th. Please don't wait to sign up. We need to make sure that we have all this stuff covered. This is a church-wide thing. If you are unable to volunteer, please consider donating at least one item that is needed so that many hands make light work and that the mission that we do for the banquet is truly a mission of the entire church, and that you're not just letting others carry your load, but that you are part of what we do together. And so you're going to probably be hearing from me in the next week or so to make sure that we get everything covered. And I promise it's a lot of fun. It's something I look forward to. And I really hope that you would consider being a part of what we do there, because this is an incredible mission that we have here in Yankton. It is an incredible way that people gather together to serve those that need help. And I would hope that if any of you were ever in a situation where you needed help, that the people of the church would gather together to support you as well. So with that, I hope that you have a great week, and I hope to see you in worship again this Sunday. Until next time, God bless. Thank you for joining us for this episode of What's Going On, a video and audio podcast of First United Methodist Church in Yankton, South Dakota. We'd love to have you join us for worship on Sundays at 10 a.m., either in person or via our live stream, which can be found at our website, www.firstumcyankton.org, or by searching First UMC Yankton on YouTube.